Hey everyone, welcome back to the Layback Podcast. Joining us today is right-handed pitcher in the Chicago Cubs organization, Dawson Netz. Now, Dawson just finished his rookie campaign at a couple different levels with the Cubs, but did not enter the organization in the most normal way. He actually got signed out of coaching with the Arizona Wildcats, and I believe he was on the pitching performance side. I don't remember the exact title, but obviously he can pick up the pieces for us on that. But nonetheless, Dawson, thanks a ton for joining us today. Really looking forward to the discussion as I know we're going to go a lot of different routes with this because you are way more than just a pitcher who throws the ball. So I'm excited to peel back the layers of this. Dawson, thanks again, and let's get into it. So what you got for me?
Appreciate it, Adam. I'm in the Cubs org currently. I was a GA or an analyst on the pitching side at the University of Arizona this last year, and I pitched at Arizona the previous 5 years. So the last 6 years I've been at the University of Arizona, and then was able to finish it out here with the Cubs org. So super excited and appreciate you having me on.
And you're an Arizona native as well, correct?
No, so I'm from LA originally
That's right.
and moved out here as soon as school started because my sister actually played softball at the University of Arizona.
That's what it
So
was. I knew you
yeah,
had family around the area, and I couldn't remember the exact order there. So the whole family came out when you and your sister decided to just make the rest of our families look bad by dominating on both diamonds.
yeah, essentially. No, I mean they just figured they were going to be out here all the time watching both of us play, and she's only a year younger than me, so she played here 5 years. I played here 5 years, only 1 year didn't line up, so they just moved out here. And my dad's originally from here. He went to high school in the area in Tucson, so very familiar with it. My grandma lived here. Have some aunts out here, so it's not like it's foreign to us. So it made a lot of sense. It was pretty seamless.
I'm going to pretend I wasn't wrong because you saying your dad is from there and you still have family there. I'm going to count that as a win in my book as close enough to you being from there. I,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
hope
yeah,
you're
yeah.
okay with that. You can't take that
Yeah,
away from me if you're not okay with that, anyways, because I'm
that
just going to
works.
die on that hill. But yeah, let's dive into the baseball career a little bit. I know from our conversations, you kind of dealt with some hiccups at times, to say the least, but you certainly logged some serious innings throughout the career. It seemed like it was a bunch of little things that kind of impacted you, but injuries certainly don't tell the whole story. So I don't want to steal your thunder here in any regard with the story. Wherever you want to pick it up to talk about the baseball career, we'll start with the career and we'll just kind of peel everything back from there.
Yeah. So initially in high school, I was very fortunate to be on some very good teams and get some really cool accolades. I was an All-American for a few different outlets and played in the area code games, did a bunch of things. I was very fortunate to have a bunch of offers that I was choosing between and like in different schools I was looking at, ultimately settled on Arizona. But getting hurt and not having success were both foreign things to me in high school that I never experienced. And then fast forward going to Arizona, I felt like I was given every opportunity in the world as a freshman to make an impact and log some big innings. Ended up hurting myself during the COVID season right before the pandemic happened. I was able to essentially take time off during that and kind of regroup and figure like, okay, this is just kind of a one-off injury. I was our midweek starter at Arizona. I was logging some pretty big innings, throwing out of the pen on the weekend. So no sweat there. Like maybe it's just a workload thing, like whatever that meant. I didn't even know what workload was. So fast forward sophomore year, healthy again, throwing, and we end up going to Omaha, which was awesome. I didn't get to throw as much that year as I wanted to. Again, was given every opportunity in the world, but didn't really know what I was doing from a pitching perspective and like what my strengths were. And my biggest thing my sophomore year was I couldn't get lefties out. I had no idea what like having a platoon neutral arsenal was or a platoon neutral pitch or something that even just played well to lefties. So I had to figure out how to just get righties out that year. Was able to throw in Omaha, which was awesome, and then ended up playing summer ball in the Cape that year. And then I had to leave early because I got hurt again. So I took more time off getting back after summer ball. And it was kind of the same theme of like, okay, let's take so and so months off. Let's not throw. Let's get you healthy. And if we're being honest, I mean, that was kind of the literature that was out around then was like, hey, we don't really know what a really good return to throw program was with like velos and understanding like what intensity ranges were. So let's just take time off, let the human body heal, and let's get you on a throwing program based on distance, and let's start doing these things. So flash forward now to junior year, I cracked the weekend rotation once I'm finally healthy, and kind of the same thing happens, and I get hurt again. And keep in mind, these are all elbow injuries. Kind of the same thing happens. I get shut down, and there was nothing handled there wrong in the sense of what we knew and kind of what was in the baseball world at the time. So I was able to finish the year, but like I couldn't throw hard anymore. And I took more time off after that because we're like, all right, you keep having these issues. Let's just see if we can have more time off and get you to just figure out how to like let your body heal and then ultimately like throw better for whatever that means with cleaner mechanics. And we have nothing to back that up objectively. So flash forward to my senior year, I get to the point where my elbow hurts so bad, I can't even throw during the week in between games. And I was taking so much ibuprofen every weekend just to be able to throw out of the pen, and ended up having a great year. And my velo is just tanking every weekend. My coach keeps asking me like, are you hurt? Are you hurt? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Even though I'm in a bunch of pain. Cause I just figured like, this is kind of the new norm for me. And I don't really know what else anything looks like or how to get out of this. So I'm just going to keep taking ibuprofen, and I'm throwing strikes and I'm getting outs. So let's just keep rolling with it. Season ends. I'm like, I have to shut down. I can't throw. Like it hurts to lift my arm. So then I end up coming back for my fifth year, and I'm like, you know what? I need to start looking into like what I'm doing wrong, and ultimately like how do I change that? So this is kind of when I started doing my own research and figuring out like what do I do at a high level, and like ultimately how do I leverage that, and then how do I track like what I'm doing wrong and these deficiencies that I have, and how do I make them better. I was very fortunate to have met Kevin Vance, who's our pitching coach my fifth year. That was his first year. And then John DeRoyne, who's now the pitching coach at Arizona. He was in a performance role with him, and they were super analytical, and they showed me a lot of the things I did at a high level and helped me to understand like objectively, okay, this is what you do. You cut your four seam a little bit at ball release, which makes you a supinator. I know that's kind of a term that people get hung up on because of the fact that, yeah, everyone supinates and pronates, but how do we turn that into a usable and actionable thing that we can help to create seam effects and help guys to understand like how they can understand ball flight and ultimately create an arsenal. So like, okay, you're probably a supinator because you cut your fastball a little bit. Okay, let's understand like what your body wants to do. How do we create a fastball around that and a secondary package to complement that? So it's like, okay, all right, let's just solely work on throwing a four seam. Let's stop throwing a two seam because that doesn't make sense for that being your main fastball to lean on. Okay, now let's understand how that plays. Okay, that probably plays well in the upper third of the zone, and let's start to create maybe like a cutter or a gyro slider off of that to create a little bit of separation. And then if you're going to throw a changeup, you're going to have to seam shift it just because you supinate into ball release. So understanding all those things, I was able to create an arsenal that was usable and helped me figure out like, okay, what are you doing that is getting you hurt? And we were able to kind of pinpoint like, okay, you kind of pushy arm action, you're putting your elbow and parts of your arm at risk because of the way that you're unwinding into ball release, and understand that, okay, how do I pull my arm through the zone? How do I leverage the pec better? How do I create a better spiral with my arm? And then ultimately looking at things like Kinetrax, understanding like, okay, how is your arm sequencing? How do we look at like your center of mass, how everything's moving? Like, is everything following the kinematic sequence properly to yield a not only healthy, but like a good, efficient throw that you can throw harder with? And looking at all these things, they kind of opened up my whole world to like, wow, we can really objectify pretty much all of this stuff and track it. Ended up having a solid fifth year. There were some hiccups early on just because of the fact that I was figuring out how to implement these things during the season, which wasn't great, but I was pretty crystal clear with them, and they were worried like, hey man, we know this is your last year. Like, are you going to be okay with not throwing a lot? Like we know you're working through some things. And I'm like, hey, ego aside, like I just want to do it right. I don't want to sit here and be upset because I'm a fifth year and this is my last year and I have to play. Like I'd rather play half the season at a high level than play the whole season at a not so high level. So looking at all of these things, I was able to figure out halfway through the year, like, okay, this is how I need to throw. This feels comfortable now based on everything that I'm learning, and ended up throwing the second half of the year, and it was awesome. Flash forward, I ended up going and playing in the MLB draft league, playing summer ball. I ended up throwing a lot harder. I was getting my average fastball velo up above 90 finally, and I was hitting 94, 95 consistently, which was something that I hadn't done in a long time. Then the draft rolls around, I get some phone calls and some orgs start hitting me up. I end up not getting drafted or signed. And I was super bummed about it because I felt like it was too little too late, to where I figured out some things to help me kind of create success, but it wasn't enough. And knowing what I know now, I mean, I'm not a super big guy. I was a lot older at the time. So like I don't know if I would have invested in myself at that moment either. So looking at it objectively from that perspective too, from the other side of the ball, like, okay, like, am I creating something of value that's going to help a major league org to create a big leaguer, or at least give them the opportunity to have higher chances with their players? Understanding that after that was very helpful. And like, you know what, maybe I just don't have it. And that kind of segued into me being a GA or an analyst at Arizona, and shifting my focus away from like, you know what, I don't think I was meant to play at a high level, but this is kind of leading me in a way where I can learn more things, and I can leverage that with players to help them understand more about themselves because of all the struggles I went through. Maybe I can use this knowledge and my experiences to help them get the most out of themselves. So that was pretty much my experience at the U of A, and kind of what led me to learning all these things.
There's one big piece that is really kind of sticking out to me. You can tell that story, and it sounds like you spent 4 years banging your head against the wall, doing the same exact thing and expecting a different result, which maybe on the surface, that's what it would appear to be. But as you stated, you, as well as those around you, and even the industry as a whole, literally didn't know any better. It's like, oh, you have
Mm,
pain, but you don't have a positive MRI. Okay, just take time off and you'll be fine in a few months.
mm.
That was the answer to everything. It was just like, yeah, dude, rub some dirt on it and you'll be okay.
Yeah,
Thankfully,
exactly.
we moved past that stage, but
Hmm.
your solution was just like, yeah, don't do anything about it for a little bit and you'll probably be okay. It's not a knock on you or anyone that you were affiliated with, as you said. It was just kind of the situation at the time. And I know that gets really hard when you are left working hard or left making decisions with no real direction associated with those suggestions. So like, yeah, this is what we think could happen, but no reasoning behind it. And it sounds like that was also the pursuits for a while on the performance side. So then when you ultimately are afforded the opportunities to look at how you move biomechanically and figure
Hmm.
out what works best for you, I'm sure it felt like this amazing illuminating moment where you're like, wait, there are things that can help me. There are tools here that I have that can actually make me successful. Because now, kind of like peeling things back or winding things back a little bit, I'm sure it was super difficult for you for a while to be like, I'm a high school All-American who could have gone anywhere in the country, and now I can't throw a fastball above 90 miles per hour as a junior in college. Like what happened? And I know that that's kind of like stepping the timeline back a little bit, but I would love to cover that mental side a little, knowing that there are so many college or professional or even high school athletes that deal with such similar things. They reach this pedestal and they think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows from there on out, not knowing that a little setback or like taking the wrong step, not even, I don't even want to call it the wrong step, but taking a step a different direction can either set you back or just completely change the trajectory of everything you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I like that you said that, because I think a lot of people look in the past and they get hung up on some of the decisions that they made. But I know in good faith that at that crossroads I was operating off of the best info that I had at the time. So I don't have regrets for where I was at and what I acted upon. But it was tough knowing that I was that guy that was at the field last every night after practice, just working on anything and everything, even though there was no substance to it, because I was like, I'm going to will success into my life right now because I'm so upset by like it being so hard. And that kind of pushing me and really motivating and channeling my work ethic into like, okay, let's put this into something smarter. Let's put this more into research and practice that actually has things backed up with data, with information, and helping guys like understand how do I use all this info that I have to actually create a good baseball player and then trim off all the fluff that doesn't matter and is just extra, right? Like I don't think everyone has to be that player that's there last all the time. Like my routine now is insanely short, but it's very specific and targeted towards the things that I know that are going to help me get better. So that was kind of my thought process with looking at where I was at then and really trying to assess it now. Like, no, I don't have regrets. Yeah, it sucked. It wasn't fun sitting in that, but I was operating off of like what I knew at the time and the information that I had.
How did either your coaches who were new for your fifth year in Vance and DeRoyne, or how did you approach them or they approach you to ultimately come to this meeting the minds of like, hey, Dawson, we can do something different here? Or are you going to them and saying, guys, like I'm lost. Like how did that play out? Who approached who? Because as you said, they're new. They're seeing a fifth year guy who's been here and although he's been hurt, he's had some success. He's been a part of the program. That's normally not where you make a lot of adjustments to an individual. I'd love if you could just talk through that as well.
Yeah, so it was pretty mutual. I mean, they kind of laid forth what they wanted me to work on, and I was crystal clear with like how I was feeling and how I felt like implementing that into my routine was working for me. That allowed us to kind of open that channel of conversation to be like, okay, this isn't working, this is working, and then reassuring them the whole way like my ego's not in this. I mean, I remember Vantic asking me all the time, like, hey man, are you upset with me that like you weren't throwing? I understand that you're not emotional about this, but I still feel for you. Like I want you to have a good experience and like I want to know how you're feeling and just like reassuring him the whole way, like, no, dude, I don't want you to feel bad for me. Like I just want to get better. And if you ever feel like I'm not ready for that, you don't have to explain it to me. Like I'm gonna put my trust in you to understand that you have my best interest in mind because of what you've communicated to me. And developing that trust, I think, is what made him such a good coach, was him understanding like, okay, I can communicate with my players or not communicate with my players and just act like I know everything or show them that I know a lot. And he knew a lot. And that really allowed me to grow in relationship with him and figure out like, okay, how do I use these things to get better? I mean, it got to the point where I was working with him specifically for a month, and then I was working with John specifically for a month, and then pulling away things from like what they were both seeing and working together. It was such a great model that allowed me to really figure out like how to get the most from myself. And I felt like that's a testament to them and how good of coaches they are and the information they had, and not only understanding it, but how good of communicators they were to help me understand like how to use it and then implement it and then how I was feeling. So my experience with them was awesome, and I owe a lot of what I've learned to both of those guys.
Moving forward to Dawson Netz, the coach. So you don't get the call coming off of that
Mm-hmm.
summer. How much did you value trying to offer a similar sentiment to the players as you move into that GA position right away? Because it's obvious that DeRoyne and Vance had a profound impact on you in the way that they were able to communicate and trust in you as an athlete and I guess like build a relationship. How were you able to take that and apply it to your own career as a coach just right off the jump? Guys that you were sharing a uniform with mere months before that see you as a teammate and just going to get burgers and shakes on the weekend with, because I know that's exactly what you guys do when you're not playing. But to then translate that immediately into, no, this is what you need to work on because this is what I see.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. What really drew me back to going there and being a volunteer was like, hey, I believe in this model. I believe in this system. I believe in the information that you're giving to players. Like, if playing's not going to work out, I want to be a coach and I want to be that kind of coach. Like, those are the things that I want to have in my toolbox that I can use. And then communicating that with players or recruits, like, hey, use me as an example. It didn't work out, but I was able to have so much success in the little time I had with these guys. And I'm now back here at school making no money because I feel like this is more valuable for me learning skills that I can use to make players better than anywhere else I could go making some sort of salary. So that was the biggest thing I tried to communicate to guys. And I think they saw that drive in me of like, wow, he does really believe in this. And this is something that we can now trust him because not only do we have coaches that we like, but we have someone that played with us, was in the trenches with us and coaching with them. Like, I felt like I was able to bridge that gap of like still understanding from their perspective as players, but like helping to bridge the information and reflect like how I felt about everything they were saying from the coaching side. And I think that synergy really helped us to create a really cool environment and to actually use the information that we're learning to make all the players a lot better.
That's pretty unique, and it's honestly not what I expected at all to hear you say that a commitment to the system is kind of what earned the trust of who were once your teammates to then your players. And I guess setting the example that way for a guy to show them, as you said, I'm just kind of summarizing this and putting it in my own, I guess, synthesized manner. But for you to actually represent, like, guys, no, this meant so much to me. I learned so much. I developed so much. I see the vision. I see the future. You can have this too. And like, I'm all in. So if like they saw you in the trenches, then want it that bad that you're willing to forego all these opportunities that you might have had elsewhere to come back and be a part of it. Like, I guess if I was your teammate, I'd be like, well, shit, this is probably the right thing for us to be doing. Why wouldn't I hop
Yeah.
on board? No, I do think that's awesome. And like I said, super unique, not what I expected. Now, sticking on this coaching theme for a little bit, what was your biggest strength you felt right away? Like, whether it's something you parlayed from your career or the number one thing you were able to help your guys with first, besides bridging the communication gap, because you already
Mhm.
used that one. So I'm not going to let you say it again. So if there's something else that you felt like made you a really effective coach, or like what was the piece of your personal coaching arsenal that made you successful during that short stint as a coach, your GA year?
Yeah, I think I always knew how to pitch at a high level, so I could speak to that in the like gamesmanship of strategy. But what I didn't know was the technical programming side of like making a pitcher better from like a drill package, him doing water bag routines, him doing med ball throws, and then throwing plyos, and like why we do each of those things and kind of what they're all spearheading towards in terms of like what the product is that we're trying to yield out of their throw. But I felt like my strength that I was able to find in going through this was helping to create a pitcher that's effective at being a really good mover, but also like understands how to like sharpen his arsenal and then ultimately use both of those things in the game. I feel like we have a lot of guys in the space that are like, okay, I'm really good at game calling in the game. Or another guy, it's like, I'm really good at programming, but I felt like my strength was being able to blend both and help guys to learn like, okay, I'm showing you how to move better here, and this is what we're doing. These are the drills that we're not only like showing you that we think are going to work, but we're verifying this on our force plate mount and showing you like, okay, you need to work on your leg lift and your unweight into your throw on the mound. And these are the 3 drills that we've prescribed to you. And our graph on Newt Force is showing that this is putting you in the most optimal place for what we're working on. So don't take my word for it. Take all the numbers that we're getting for it and realize that, like, now that we're getting you to move better, okay, now I can blend TrackMan data in with like what we're trying to do with your arsenal. Now let's use both of these things to get you to throw harder and pitch more effective to both lefties and righties. So I would say that would be my biggest strength, is being able to kind of holistically look at how do we blend both of these, because the beauty of our game is, and I say this to everyone, like, you can get as optimal as you want off the field, but at the end of the day, you have to go play a game too. So being able to create a cohesion with both of these trains of thought and then ultimately just make a good pitcher.
And all while this is going on, are you still training in the hopes of getting into pro ball? Or where was this fire that was still burning for the Cubs to ultimately sign you in, what was it, March or something like that of 2025 to hop on over to the complex and start training to go off to an affiliate?
Yeah, so that kind of kick-started with, we do these things in the fall called competition bullpens, and guys throw against each other, and it's kind of a break that they get in just throwing on TrackMan every day and just focusing on purely like, okay, what do your shapes look like? How hard are you throwing? Are you executing this in the zone? To like, no, we're going to put you up against somebody that you're playing with right now, and we're going to figure out like who's gonna win this arena style fighting head to head, like who's gonna thrive in this kind of situation now with the tools that we've given you. And we had like an odd number, and Vance is like, hey, like, can you throw? Like, we just need someone to throw against one of the guys. And I was like, sure. And I had not been built up to that point, but was still throwing enough with the guys that needed to warm up every day just so that they could throw. And I was like, okay, this is what I would throw. This is how I would do it. Just really click in my head. If I was in their shoes playing again, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go up there. Like, I'm probably going to try to like move a little bit better on the mound. I'm going to try to have a better unweight. I'm going to try to move a little smoother, sit later, and then ultimately like drop my arm angle to rotate a little bit better. So I'm having these internal thoughts, just saying like, okay, how do I make a quick fix? Like, let's just mess around this really quick. So I jump on the mound, I throw a bullpen against a guy. I don't end up beating him, but I'm sitting like 92 to 94 and like throwing pretty hard. Sliders nasty, changeups nasty, and like understanding why I'm throwing these things. I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have to seam shift the changeup. I have to cut it a little bit. Understanding like where does my ring finger have to be when I'm throwing this? And all right, if I'm going to throw a gyro, I supinate. It's going to sweep a little bit. I'm going to kind of cheat out to the front of it. I need to stay behind it a little bit and trust that I'm going to create that break just based on who I am anatomically, and then ultimately like how to throw that. Like, this slider needs to be hard. So I'm doing all this stuff, and they're like shocked. They're like, oh my gosh, dude, like this is actually pretty gross. And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is a testament more to what you guys are showing me, if anything, because I'm literally just using what I'm learning. And there was another guy at Arizona in my same role, his name's Owen Cuff. He's now in the pitching performance role that John was in with Vance last year. And we both got to the point where we were like, you know what? You're still able to throw at a high level. Like, let's just do an experiment, and let's just program you as if you were one of the players here. And let's see if we can get you to, I don't know, throw 100, like something stupid. That was kind of the initial point of where we started down this rabbit hole of like, let's just see what you can do. And then I had this thought in the back of my head, like, okay, I'll get built up. I'll go play indie ball and try and throw as hard as I can just for fun. And then as soon as the season's over, I'll call it quits. I'll try and get a job and be a coach somewhere. So we start going through all of this, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to start like objectively understanding what I'm doing at a high level, what I'm doing bad, and then how do we assess that? And then ultimately the areas that I'm weak in, how do I incrementally get better to figure out like how to raise the floor on these and make myself a better player? Because if you can hit 100 once, that's useless if your average fastball velo is 89, right? Who cares? It's about pushing the floor on usable metrics that actually mean something. So it's like, No, I wanna be able to have an average fastball velo of 92. Like I've been able to hit 95 a few times in my career, but my average fastball velo was always around 90. So it's like, okay, how do we get my floor higher? What's the kind of arsenal I want to throw? How do we create shapes? And we're like, you know what? Let's throw all of them. So I got to the point where I was throwing 8 pitches, but understanding like how my supination bias plays into creating seam effects and movement with the ball into ball release. So it's like, okay, I had 8 pitches. I mean, I was throwing a four seam, a sinker, I was throwing splitters, changeups, throwing a cutter, gyro, sweeper, and a curveball. We were just kind of messing around with all this stuff and like, okay, now let's take you to the training room. Let's do a range of motion screen. Let's figure out where you're deficient. And then let's leverage those things that we know about you anatomically to figure out like, how do you create force? How do you hold the ground? How do you generate Z force on the mound? How do you generate Y force? And ultimately, like, how do you apply the brakes on the mound the best to create an efficient lead leg block so that we can yield just a really good, efficient throw and then build this arsenal secondary package off of that to create something. So it's like, okay, this is what we want. Now let's backtrack. Let's track it. And we got to the point where it's like, okay, now we understand anatomically what you're doing, what your arsenal is doing. Now let's track your throws like you're a weightlifter. Let's figure out what you need to do, where your high days are, where your low days are, when you're going to have an off day, and then when your deload period is going to be, and then what velo range you need to be in based on the percentage of your max fastball and where we want that to be. And then operating with that to create a good acute to chronic ratio so that I can get within this window where I'm operating in a healthy way to yield the best pitcher I can possibly be with the information that I have. So we were just going crazy nerding out over all of this stuff, which was awesome. And we were just having fun with it. Like I wasn't expecting to get a phone call that, hey, we want to sign you based on all this stuff. So we just kept working along all of this for a few months, and guys were like watching me do all this and they were asking us questions. And Owen did an awesome job in like helping me to implement all this and helping me to understand a lot of this info. And he's in that role for a reason right now because he understands all this stuff. So we were working together, really trying to make a monster, if you will, like Frankenstein in the lab. So that was our goal.
How did the Cubs hear about you?
Yeah, so John is good friends with Tyler Zombro, who helps run Shred, and he's a special assistant with the Cubs. Essentially, we were at the point now where it's like, okay, I was fully built up. We started throwing in the lab, and I threw a bullpen the first time in the lab after we'd figured out some different movement things that I was working on to throw a little bit harder. And we were like, all right, let's push the envelope a little bit. Let's throw all 8 shapes, and let's get you to try to hit a PR. I'm like, okay. I'm warming up at like 89, and Owen looks at me and he's like, dude, like this is coming out pretty hot for your warm-ups. Like you've normally thrown 89 in the game, like max intent bullets. Like this is looking pretty good. So I'm throwing, and knowing what I know about myself, like, okay, I don't want to get my adrenaline going too early because once that spikes, I'm not able to kind of hold what I'm doing and get ready efficiently. So I'm like, I need to really ease into this. So I'm warming up at 89. Okay, I'm at 90, 91, 92. Towards the end of the pen, I'm starting to throw like 93 pretty consistently. And then he's like, all right, it looks like you're moving a little slow. Newt force is showing that your center of mass velocity is a little low. So I start moving a little faster, and next thing you know, it's 94, 94, 94, 95, 95. And then I break my PR of like 95.3, and I'm like 95.4, 95.5, 95.6. And he's like, dude, you're climbing. I was literally taking the info he was spewing to me from what he was seeing on the computer in the lab, and I'm implementing this as I'm throwing. And we're able to kind of like cohesively create a better delivery during the pen as I'm throwing. So I felt like I had reached this optimal point of like, okay, I understand how to actually leverage this information now, and I understand this language. Like there's no other way to throw than have a guy that's able to translate stuff like this for me so that I can manage it and throw harder. So we end up going back into the office. with the coaches, and they're like, "Oh, we saw you guys were like messing around in the lab. How'd it go?" And I was like, "Dude, I hit a PR 3 times and broke it 3 times." And they were like, "Oh my gosh, like that's pretty cool." I'm like, "Yeah, like just using all the stuff that we're learning." So this is right before our season started this year in 2025. We're like, okay, let's deload now for a week. Let's have you re-ramp up, and let's have you throw one more bullpen, and let's see if you can break that record and hit 96, which I'd never done ever. I ended up throwing a touch and feel on that Friday, which was a week later. And we were just going to go up there and have a high intent day, stay within a range of like 89 to 91, just so I can get my arm used to that, because we had ramped up properly up until that point, but then it got to where we were biting off a little more than we can chew and got a little greedy with like, all right, yeah, you hit a PR, but that was a little aggressive early. So like, okay, we're gonna back off a little bit. End
While
up
you're also
going in,
coaching guys.
yes, at the same time. So they're all in there watching. And so I'm supposed to throw this deload pen on Friday and just kind of like get on the mound, hit a certain velo range, just so that I'm ready for this max intent bullpen the following week. So I get up there, I'm warming up at like 91, and he's like, "Dude, we're not doing a deload week right now. Like, you're just gonna go for it because your body's feeling good." I'm like, "Okay, fine." I get up there. My average fastball velo for the pen was 93. Keep in mind, it's supposed to be a deload pen. Throwing 93. And then by the end of it, I'm like sitting 95.5, 95.6. I hit 95.8. And then the last bullet's 96.1. And we're looking at each other like, this is unbelievable. Like, I didn't feel like I was putting in any more effort than I had in my career. I was just moving more efficiently. And I was understanding like what I was doing and what buttons I had to press more to yield more output out of myself, just understanding who I am as an athlete and as a thrower. So we end up having this TrackMan report that's got 8 pitches on it and an average fastball velo of 93 with my new PR of 96.1. And we're looking at this and we're like, holy crap, this looks pretty cool. So John sends it out to some of his friends, and Zombro ends up looking at it, but we don't get any hits. I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, you know what? I think it's just wishful thinking at this point. Like, I'm turning 25 soon, like I'm a coach. I haven't been playing up until this point. Like, I'm sure they're just being nice, sending this out, just seeing what happens. So we end up going to a series at BYU in Provo, Utah, and we're getting on the bus to go to our game, I believe, on Saturday, and get a phone call from Zombro, and he's like, "Hey, dude, if you're interested, we will sign you right now." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, I was just messing around." Like, I didn't say this to him, but I was like, sure, yeah, I'll sign with the Cubs. Like, that sounds awesome. Like, who doesn't want to play pro baseball? So get off the phone. I'm walking on the bus. All the guys hear about it. They're all going crazy. We end up going to the field. I'm borrowing a guy's cleats and his glove, and I'm throwing a bullpen to get ready to go play rookie ball in a week. So I was helping Owen run our bullpen for games, getting guys hot. I don't have any gear, obviously. Like, I'm just there wearing a uniform, like helping guys get ready. And I'm just charting all of our games. And I'm having to borrow gear and get ready to go throw again. So that was insane. And that was my last weekend, and end up leaving after we got home, and then drove up to Mesa, and the rest is history. So crazy how that all happened.
I love that in this whole process, it was literally just a couple guys messing around trying to learn a little bit more, and like the
Just
really
a couple
fun
idiots messing
possible
around in the
result.
lab. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the ultimate playground for a couple of nerds who love baseball and happen to be
Yes.
decent at it. All while you're trying to go to Omaha, and all while you're trying
Hmm.
to create the best pitching staff possible. So I can't imagine you were sleeping too much during this time when you're trying to invest everything you can to help the guys be as good as they can be, as well as you trying to be as good as you can be with all the tools and all the knowledge that you had basically been searching for your entire career. You finally had it. And then, of course, it's while you're trying to do everything all at once.
I slept fine up until that night that I had to wake up and drive up there. I was pretty nervous because I did not know what to expect. I was like, I don't know if these guys are going to look on an MRI and see that something's wrong. Like, I don't know. I haven't looked at my arm in forever. I felt fine. I felt the best I'd felt in my entire career. So I was just super nervous because I didn't know what to expect. And leading up to that point, it was surreal because I'm like, okay, like I was having a lot of fun doing all this, but now it's getting serious. Like this is now I'm jumping back into my baseball career that I had overthought up until this point and was doing all the wrong things. So I was literally talking to myself as I'm driving up there, like, dude, what are you going to do differently now? Because that obviously didn't work. Yeah, you were able to throw a little bit harder over the last few weeks, but like now you need a routine. Now you need to figure out what you're doing. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole. Like, okay, all the research that I've done, like what are these systems that I like? What are these things that I've learned about? What are these deficiencies that I had that I can hit head on and track? And I mean, that's how I learned about you guys. Was like I was at the Wake Forest seminar learning about all this stuff, and I was like, you know what? I've had elbow issues. I've done research on isometrics and tendon health, and ultimately, like I probably had a tendon-based issue with my elbow, and I'd already kind of laid some groundwork out with like, okay, I need to do something with isometrics. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm like, wait, I learned about this Flex Pro Grip, and I've had elbow issues. This is an isometric based system, and it tracks it periodically, and it targets specific structures within your elbow. Like, why would I not use this? So now I started to do this internal audit of like, all right, I don't need to do a bunch of forearm strengthening exercises. I need to be very specific based on the symptoms I was feeling and find systems that I can use to track it. I mean, I also got in touch with Ryan Yoshida with Armored Heat, and I was like, okay, what about my shoulder do we know objectively yields the best and most efficient way to move and be healthy as a thrower? Okay, let's get on a program with Armored Heat. Okay, now I've got my elbow, I've got my shoulder, I've got my arm health taken care of. Now, what am I doing on the weightlifting side to help kind of yield these results of like being healthy and then maintaining a good engine that I can use throughout the year? And very fortunate, our organization's very forward thinking. We have some great guys on the weightlifting side, and we're able to track force output and understand like why we're doing certain lifts, what the data is showing with these lifts, and ultimately like how to do that. And now, okay, we're going to track on force plates your counter movement jump and understand what your force output is in different metrics, and things like eccentric braking force, and like how are you filling all the buckets necessary to create a high level athlete? What were the injuries that you had? And then just going head on with all these specific issues. And okay, what are the drills you were doing to throw harder and to create a better, more efficient thrower from the anatomical constraints that you have within your body? And now how do we create this new program for yourself that you can lean on and objectively track and understand where it needs to be at? And I got to this point where I'm laying out all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, day one, let's hit all these things and let's see what it is. I'm like, okay, took me 45 minutes to run through all of this, took me another 30 minutes to do lifting and all that. Okay, my routine now is an hour long, and I need to go home and play Fortnite and not think about anything else, because everything I've done in track now, I know works, and I'm hitting everything head on. I don't need to be the last guy at the field anymore, wasting all my time because I know that stuff isn't working. So I was able to lay out all this stuff and figure out like, what am I going to be as a player now? And what is my routine going to look like that's going to yield the best results and not give me such a headache?
I have a few responses there, and I don't want to ruin the flow. So I'm just going to address a couple and then we're going to keep it
Uh,
moving. But first, I remember that call vividly when you reached out about Flex Pro, when you're like, wait, this is another thing that I can track. Going back to you trying to figure out solutions to everything, you finally got objective measurements. Thankfully, we had the stars align a little bit and I guess quasi meet at Wake Forest in a sense,
mhm.
at least be in the same room. But
Yeah.
you were able to see like, wait, you're telling me I can now objectively measure the things that protect my elbow? Maybe that's what I need. So then add that to the puzzle. And I remember looking at these paintings behind you on a Zoom call and you saying like, look, I just got signed. I've been working for free. I have no money. What can I do? Like, what
Mhm.
can I do that can help me? Because I understand I can't get Flex Pro Grip right now. And I remember you telling me I signed with a pro org. And I said, if you're at the liberty to tell me, I totally understand if you don't want to disclose who signed you. And you said the Chicago Cubs. And I remember saying, well, do I have news for you? Being a part of the Chicago Cubs, you have the right to use Flex Pro Grip at your disposal. And you like kind of jaw dropped to me like, wait, are you serious? Like, yeah, man, like literally, here's the person that you are going to go up to tomorrow when you get to the complex and say, I want to use Flex Pro Grip. That was a funny one for sure that I wanted to address. Then the next piece, and this is where I said I was going to screw myself by trying to bite off way too much at once. I love so much that you then mentioned the shut off. Like that's so big. So many guys get so concerned about like just because I made it now, like that doesn't mean I made it. Like I have to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to like do everything to constantly set myself above. You got to a point where you were able to continue your own internal audit and assess what works for you. So now you have this super dialed routine where you can afford yourself free time. You don't have to be Dawson Netz, the free agent signed pitcher every single second of every single day. You can also be the dude that likes playing video games. You can be the guy
Mm-hmm.
that likes going for walks. Whatever it is you like doing, you can legitimately shut things off. So now I want to take those couple of pieces and everything on this like intro to pro ball and talk about the routine. Well, I guess that's the of course, I'm an idiot. I said this stuff out of order. That was going to be my number three. My number two was going to be, well, we'll see if I can edit this in a funky way. My number two was going to be great timing on talking about the strength of the strength and conditioning program of the Chicago Cubs, because now we're going to podcast time travel a little bit. Just a
Mm-hmm.
week ago, which hasn't come out yet at the time of this recording, I had Dr. Mike Son on the podcast. So for those of you listening now, and if you didn't listen to Mike Son, go back and listen to him talk about the amazing things that are being done in high performance with the Chicago Cubs. So there you have it. You got it from Mike Son, the pitching scientist of the Chicago Cubs, as well as a player internally who didn't know that I interviewed Mike Son a week ago at the timing of this. So there you go. Good job having organizational alignment there. But
That's
now
awesome.
let's go back to you really honing in your routine and kind of how that set you free.
Yeah, it just helped me to take all the guesswork out of it and to understand like this is what you do. You're not going to be Superman and you're not going to sit 105, but like how can we push the envelope on your average fastball velo? How can we push the envelope on your force output? And how can we get your post throw routine to fill all of the areas that you know that you need to work on in order to yield like what a good pitcher looks like. And getting linked up with you and Son too was like super helpful because I didn't understand what our org had at the time. Like I was just getting introduced to this. I was waiting for my physicals to clear that week. And I remember just like, I'm going to call everyone that I know that can help me with all of these things. And I didn't understand that Son was in charge of all this stuff and ended up getting really close with him and understanding like we have all these systems, like let's help you to use it so that we can create the best version of yourself possible. And he really opened my eyes to like specifically what the science is behind understanding like what workload management is, why we use Flex Pro, and how do we bridge the weight room with throwing with all of this stuff. And just realizing like, okay, now that I understand all this stuff, like what does my org look for and what are major leaguers doing to get to the big leagues and what are they doing at a high level? We have some really smart dudes here in our front office that were helping me understand this. And it was like looking at, okay, these guys are able to strike out more hitters on average, but they're also not walking a lot of guys. And if you want to get places, you got to push the envelope on average fastball velo because that opens your door up to having better secondary, and then understanding like there's something called perceived velocity. Now we're understanding VAA and how fastballs are entering the strike zone, and like, okay, now that I have all these things, my best fastballs are a little bit harder on average. My release height is a little bit lower on average. My extension's a little bit higher on average. And this all playing into what I'm trying to do. And it's like, okay, now that I understand all these things, like I'm going to push the envelope on what I know about my arsenal, and I'm going to use it in a way to create the best pitcher and version of Dawson Netz that I possibly can. And that was super liberating for me because I was like, now I don't have to take any of this guesswork out of it, and I'm just going to go as hard as I can. And I'm a firm believer in the good Lord looking out for me and opening this door for me. And if it's not meant to be, so be it. Like I want to be a coach. I want to help people learn about this stuff. But if he doesn't want me here right now, so be it. Like I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to stress about things that I don't know. So understanding all of these things, that was the perspective, the mindset, and everything that I had created up until that point to hit the ground running week one and jump into pro ball again as a player.
Again, a couple things I want to call to based on what you just shared there. One, you were able to parlay everything you just said into a pretty solid 63 and two-thirds innings, your rookie campaign. It looks like you started 9 of the 18 games that you appeared in, and I know that doesn't include any of the backfield data that you had to work through when you first got assigned to the Cubs, and you're trying to show them that you do have a workload and you have to work through all these different things. But you threw over 1,000 pitches in pro ball this year across 4 different levels. And it's pretty unique to see that you were able to come in right away, throw in relief, as well as go out and make starts. Like so amazing that you started in the complex and then you're able to go off to high A and be a starter in South Bend and then finish the season in double A. Like I'm sure that was somewhat of a whirlwind to know that like not only do I get the chance to play pro ball, but everything that I have done so far has enabled me to have some success in pro ball. Even in this first year, as I'm still learning and figuring out how to keep my feet under me. But then the other piece that I wanted to address, you mentioned Mike Son. You mentioned reaching out to me or Ryan Yoshida or these other people. You said anybody that you felt could help you whatsoever. Whenever that happened in your career, that you realized that, wow, I can't get help if I don't speak up, or I don't know what's going to be available to me if I don't ask. I'm sure that was liberating as well, knowing that there are so many people that also have your best interests and are trying to help you go as far as you can. And if you don't say something, those opportunities don't arise.
I got to the point where I was like, if I'm gonna sit back and not say anything, my career is not gonna happen for me. Like I need to go out and get what I know works. And I was like, you know what? I don't care what people think of me anymore. I don't care if this is awkward or if I'm reaching out to someone in a weird way. Like I know this works. I know what I want out of this. I'm gonna try to connect with as many people as I can who understand baseball from this perspective and where the game's moving, and ultimately just how do I leverage data the best in order to yield the best player I can possibly be. And that was my main focus, and I wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that.
And I think I want to make one more shift here in discussion since we've kind of already been going at this for a while. I don't even remember when we hit the record button, but I know we covered a handful of topics before we did press record. And out of the sake of your own throwing program today and my marriage, I probably shouldn't stay on too much longer. So with that, the one final shift we're going to make is loosely tied to what you were talking about, what's going on internally with the Cubs. It has been pretty evident on social media if you follow the right people. I talked about this a little bit with Mike Son. The Cubs are doing some incredible stuff from a high performance perspective. I think that's excellent for branding. Going down this branding discussion, organizations all do something different. or they all do roughly the same stuff. They're all trying to win baseball games, but they all have their own unique way in a sense that they go about it or what they value. And you have seen this as a coach at the collegiate level, granted for a short time, but you saw this at the collegiate level and how you guys needed to create a brand or a plan to express it to your players to get buy-in and get people to be successful. Now you're
Hmm.
seeing it as an athlete again with the Cubs who are trying to show their guys, we have this amazing product. We have this amazing solution that we can offer you guys that if you just participate in the system, we know we can increase your overall output and get you one step closer to being a major leaguer. So now I want to just turn this over to you to talk a little bit about something that you said you find really unique within the game, and that's kind of brand creation to recruit players or get buy-in from players to believe in the mission that their org set forward.
For sure. I mean, up until having this opportunity to go out and play again, I wanted to work in the front office for an MLB org somewhere. And this is still something I'm pretty keen on, and I try to analyze and like understanding like what are the best orgs doing? What are the orgs that are winning World Series, going to the playoffs, playing at a high level, and not only making major leaguers for themselves, but like trying to make major leaguers for the whole org to create value to then trade them and create more value for themselves. Just looking at this, it seems like the best orgs are operating off of data and analytics and understanding like how do we leverage those, but how do we holistically cultivate a program that includes good propaganda, good branding in a way where the players feel like they're a part of something and they're uniting around something? And then how do we create like a staff and coaches that are on the ground every day on the field, talking to the front office, talking to all of our coordinators, our scientists, and understanding like what are the analysts saying? What are the players doing? What do we want as an org? And how do we bridge all of this and use that to create a culture of winning and output every single year? There isn't one thing I think specifically that trumps the other, but it's the idea that all of it matters and you have to create a culture that people unite around. And hopefully one day like I want to be a part of something where I can help instill this and use what I've learned, but get other people to believe in it and then ultimately unite around it so that you can create the system that kind of polices itself, and then all the players can almost like put their trust in you and not overthink stuff, but understand like we're doing these things in good faith for you guys. We're tracking stuff. We know what a major leaguer looks like on average from data, from output, from numbers, and like we can now measure success. And we can do it in a way where we're going to show you what we're doing and what we see from you. We want you to put your trust in us so you can just focus on working on the things that we know work, and you can just go out there and play. Because I felt like I had to turn into the coach that I never had, and it was no one's fault. Like we were just operating off the information that we had. But I was like, you know what? I have to be the coach that I want to be to yield the kind of player I want to be. And like policing myself and having to look at and understand like what I'm doing and analyze it and create a good product. But I think players will thrive if they're able to understand information, but they don't have to be their own coach. I think everyone tries to be their own coach and it takes their focus away from like just being a normal human being off the field and understanding like go to the field, get your work in, and trust the guys that are there that have your best interest in mind. They're able to objectively track like how to get you better. But at the same time, don't overthink it because we know what you need to do. This is the mark. You just need to get there. And we're going to show you how to incrementally get there and then get a bunch of guys like that to unite around the same type of idea, the branding, the propaganda, just so that they can understand like this is what I need to do if I want to play in the major leagues and help my org win a World Series.
Creating such a system would enable players to keep the main thing, if that is the case. Like you said, they no longer have to be worried about where do they go to find information, or what can they do on their own, whether it's on social media or reaching out to someone, or just like scouring their phone and the internet for the solution to something, if they know their organization has something in place. Now, of course, we would be, I guess, short-sighted not to recognize that every number, whether we like it or not, as far as organizations are concerned, technically kind of has a good and a bad side to it, because
Mhm.
we know what these numbers indicate. It could be a reason to keep a guy around. It could be a reason to get rid of a guy. It could be a sign of something that needs to improve, or it could be a sign that a guy is trending in the wrong direction, which then goes back to, I think, the message behind these numbers. Because yes, we have to recognize as an industry that data is powerful and it can tell a story either way. It can tell a good story, it can tell a bad story. But if the organization is constantly operating with the perspective of trying to get every guy to the show, and they show that to a player, or a player believes that the organization truly has their best interest, they know that they are not looking for reasons then to cut said player, or to whatever, dump said player, get rid of him, cast him aside. They're legitimately looking to create as many major leaguers as possible. Let's face it, if an organization can put that in the minds of the player, players aren't dumb. They realize that there are only 20, however many slots, depending on the year, to be a
Mhm.
Major League Baseball player for their own organization. But there are also 29 other teams out there. And getting traded generally is a good sign, because it means another organization values what you do and they want whatever it is that you do. So getting traded is not a knock from your org. It is often a massive compliment from another org saying, whoa, this guy does something that we don't have, or has a skill that we believe in. So if that becomes messaging of the data, like this is what we're going to do to make you a big leaguer. If it's with us, freaking awesome. If not, we want you to go be a big leaguer elsewhere, because then that's a testament to what we were able to do in house. So as far as like the marketing, the propaganda side goes, like I'm all in on what you're saying. I love that concept too. One of my passions when I was working as a D2 coach prior to this Flex Pro Grip thing, I'm actually repping sweatshirt today, so shout out Eckerd College. But I talked a lot about re-recruiting. Like, we work so hard to bring guys in. Why don't we work as hard to keep guys here, or show them that they did make the right choice? It always stops once you get them in the door. That's what it seems to be. And that's a problem. You need guys to believe in the system if we're actually all going to function at the highest level. So I'm right there with you. I don't know if you want to tag team this mission one day, but if you want to, give me a call. But Dawson, that does it for me as far as the true, I guess, meat and potatoes of this interview. So, what I like doing with guys who have some pro experience, I don't know why this became tradition, but it did. Granted, you only have 1 year under your belt at this point, so we are going to expand the answer possibilities out well beyond your pro ball potential answers. What is the single most unique stadium or environment that you have played in your entire career?
Hmm.
And don't feel bad saying this is the toughest question that you've gotten all day, because that's always seems to be what guys say. For whatever reason, I can ask about Arsenal development, and that's a snap of a finger. You have it on the back of your hand. But when I ask you to call back on a stadium that you thought was amazing, you're just like, wow, I have not thought about that in years.
Yeah. I got to pitch in high school at Petco Park in San Diego, and I thought that was unbelievable. And my whole family was there, had some family friends there. I think that place is just beautiful, and that was a pretty surreal experience. So that'd
I'll
probably be
take
my
that.
choice.
That's a pretty good one. That's a great one. I typically do love when a guy says like, yeah, we played at whoever's double A park the year before they redid it, and legitimately like someone fell through the bleachers during our game or something. Like
Oh my
those
gosh.
those are the answers that I love. I mean, granted that was a little bit of hyperbole when I told that story there, but
Hmm.
I love when the guys are like, yeah, we played at whoever's single A affiliate and they left the sprinklers on and the entire field flooded, but we had to play the game anyways because of like they had a concert the next day and we couldn't reschedule.
Oh
I
my
find that
gosh.
stuff so funny. But no, Dawson, thank you. You handled this interview with grace. This was tremendous. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Winston-Salem here in about a month. It's been awesome to get to know you over this past year, and I'm excited to see what this offseason brings you now that you know you truly are a professional baseball player and you can keep that routine in place and only worry about
Mhm.
yourself this time around instead of 35 plus guys in a dugout. So thanks again for the time today. Good luck with the throwing program, which I know you've held off a little bit for me to hop on this call, but this was tremendous. And to all the listeners out there, thanks for laying back with us.